wondered why you can't play through a whole song all the way through without stopping or making mistakes? I've been teaching harp students for more than 10 years, and nearly all of them practice the wrong way when it comes to getting through an entire song. So in this video, I'm going to show you the mistake that's stopping you, how to practice the right way, and some common pitfalls to avoid so you can actually play complete songs without stumbling through. To start, you need to understand why most students practice the wrong way in preparation for playing a whole piece and make a ton of mistakes and pauses as a result. And the best way to think about this is that playing all the way through a song is like running a marathon. To prepare for a marathon, you start with shorter distances and then slowly increase the distances you run until you work your way all the way up to the full 26 miles. No one in their right mind would only practice sprints of a few hundred meters and then show up on race day and try to do a whole marathon. But unfortunately, most students don't think about practicing the harp in this way. The main practice advice you hear is to work on small chunks instead of trying to play through a whole piece. And that's for good reason. It is really important to practice that way when you're learning notes or when you're trying to correct specific issues with your piece. But most students will then jump straight from those little sprints to trying to play everything in one go, completely skipping the incremental increases that come in the middle. They'll go from playing very small sections to playing the whole song and say, "Ugh, I can play it right when I just play that spot, so how come I can't do it when I play the whole song?" Well, just like you need to build up endurance for a marathon, you need to build up mental endurance for playing all the way through an entire song on the harp. There are so many things to think about and keep track of that your brain can get tired when it has to keep going for so long without a break. Now that we know what not to do, I'm going to show you how to practice the right way to build the endurance you need to get through the whole song. The key is to start with what is doable. So if you're able to play a small chunk, start by playing that. That might look like just one measure to start with. Then add 2 small chunks together and play 2 measures. If it feels doable, you can add a 3rd measure and then a 4th. If that feels like too much at once still and you're unable to play through without mistakes, develop a second smaller chunk first and then add them together. So in this example, rather than going straight for a 4-bar chunk, I'll practice 2 2-bar chunks first, then add them together. From here, you want to develop several of these medium-sized segments in the same way. So in this case, I could go to the next line and start by playing just the first 2 measures, then just the 3rd and 4th measures, then all 4 of those measures in a row, and so on. Then when you have several 4-measure segments, try doing an 8-measure segment, and continue working up the size of the segments you play. Each time you move up to a longer section, make sure to start off by playing more slowly than usual to reduce the mental strain it takes to play it. And continue working like that until you're playing through the whole piece. Lastly, let's cover 3 common mistakes students make when trying out this system of practicing. Avoid these and you'll see a drastic improvement in the number of mistakes you make. First, try to make sure you're not always starting at the beginning of your piece. If you've ever worked on a piece of music that you could start really well, but then fizzle out and barely be able to get to the end, this is why. Make sure you cover the whole song in medium and larger sized chunks that start at different points through the piece before playing straight through from the beginning to the end. And don't upgrade to a larger section unless everything inside of it has been addressed in a smaller chunk first. The next thing you want to avoid doing is only playing correctly once. Whatever size of chunk you're working on, it's always best to repeat it correctly 3 to 5 times before moving on to make sure whatever you've practiced really sticks. Your brain is going to remember whatever you do the most, so if it takes you 10 tries to play something correctly, that means you played it 9 times wrong and only 1 time right. Based on that, what do you think your brain's going to remember? So before you move on, even out the scales a little bit and repeat the passage correctly a few more times. The last thing that students will overlook is really easy to forget, but it makes a huge difference when it comes to playing for an extended period of time. The more music you'll be playing in a row, the more your brain has to remember, and the more likely it is you'll need a visual reminder of what comes next. So practice looking at your sheet music. And I mean practice looking. Plan when you're going to look and know where you need to be looking at that point in the song. Kind of like how we place our fingers on the strings, you can kind of think of this as placing your eyes. Make a marking on the page at those spots so that they jump out at you and are easy to find. Using color works great for that. Then as you practice your segments of various lengths, include the act of looking at the planned times in your music. Once you're at the stage of preparing to play an entire piece, it's really important that you fully understand and know your music. There's simply too much information that you have to process without a break to interpret everything on the page on the fly. So watch this video next to learn a powerful practice hack that will help you know your music more deeply so that you can successfully play all the way through. And don't forget to sign up for my free email newsletter for free harp tips straight to your inbox. Happy harping!